Hi everyone, good afternoon to all of you who are joining in. Welcome to Point of View. Point of View is an online conversational series by Sindhave School of Design in collaboration with ADI, the Association of Designers of India. My name is Aditi Vitastadhar and I am the moderator for today's session. I'm a product designer by training from NID Ahmedabad. Although my career has been largely in the fashion industry as an entrepreneur and a leather goods designer, I am also visiting faculty at NID, Pearl, and IICD, and a member of ADI Delhi chapter. So welcome to you all. And 2021, of course, has been a significant year for most of us. But it also marks 15 years of Sindhave School of Design, helmed ably by Professor Basant Nair, director of CSD. CSD was established in the year 2006 in Calicut, Kerala, and has today become a well-recognized institution for design education, offering both UG and PG programs in interior design, fashion, and visual communication. Spread across India with 14 branches and 13,000 strong alumni. So congratulations for a wonderful achievement to the Sindhave team and organization. A quick shout out to Sophia, Viraj and Swapna for being behind the scenes for today's session. I would also like to thank all the speakers who have joined us for past and upcoming POV sessions. And I'm sure today's session is going to be equally fantastic. And I am very excited to start. So let's go ahead. By first introducing our speaker for today, I would like to invite Gaurav Gupta to come online, please, and just say hello to everyone. And I'd like to introduce him very quickly. Hi, Gaurav. Nice to see you.
Hi everyone. Hi Aditi.
Hi, thank you for being with us. Just a brief introduction about you to our audience who tuned in today. Gaurav is a fashion designer and the founder of label Akaro, which was created in 2010. He has trained at the Chelsea College of Art and Design and the National Institute of Fashion Technology, New Delhi. He has had a prolific career with collaborations with such brands as Jimmy Choo, Duro Aulu, London, and Himestone, Paris. He is also the first Indian designer to be commissioned by the Woolmark Company to develop a range of cool wool menswear,
Yes.
collection for Raymond in 2014. Apart from that, he has also showcased his work and his label at extensively at Fashion Weeks, both Amazon Fashion Week and Lakme Fashion Week in India and internationally at the RMIT University Australia and Alchemy Festival in London. He currently lives and works in New Delhi, and he continues to do his design research and experimentation at his studio to develop his unique aesthetic. He is also the only fashion designer to be featured solo on the cover of India Today magazine. I would highly recommend for all of you to visit his website, follow his social media handles, especially Instagram, where one can get a deeper understanding of his design process, his journey, the textiles and the research that he develops, as well as collections under the label Akaro. I am also happy to confess that Gaurav is a close personal friend, and we've known each other for several years. In fact, our studios were next to each other for a period of time. And I'm also a big fan of his label. And I have a few pieces, a few beautiful pieces of his work in my wardrobe. So this is a real pleasure to have Gaurav here. Thanks, Gaurav, so much. Um, Now that's all done with the introductions. Let me start right away by asking Gaurav a personal question. Gaurav, what has been your earliest memory of engaging with a piece of Indian textile, if you can tell us?
Well, I So I will we done the presentation now or
We'll do it after. So what I was thinking was just
okay,
after this,
sure.
we're going to go to the
So
polls and then the presentation.
not really as such, like I don't really have any memory because when I was growing up, I never really realized that I'll end up doing textiles. So the only thing I remember is there was a movie released, I think when I was very young, called Chandni, and it had a poster of Sri Devi in a flying sari in solid colors. So I remember that poster very clearly. I think that's the only thing. And maybe my grandmother's saris, or we used to have a photo shoot sometimes at our home, a family photo shoot, and they used to put a bed cover at the back to make it a backdrop. It had a floral print. So small things like that. Nothing in particular. No, not like strong memories of anything.
This has a very nice 90s vibe, very nice
90s,
90s
yes, yes,
aesthetic
yes.
growing up, and I can relate to that. I had a similar sort of a experience. So let me start. Maybe perhaps we'll start first, Gaurav, maybe with a poll question, and then move on to the presentation. I
Yeah.
wanted to get the audience engaged right away. Swapna, can you please just bring up the first poll question, and we'd like our audience to weigh in and give us their selection. If you can just bring it up now. I think we'll wait for the uh, back-end team to. I don't. Swapna, can we bring up the first poll question? Um, if it's taking some time, we can switch and maybe come back to it later. Oh, is it on? And I can't see it. Sorry. Let me. Oh, there we go. It's come up on my screen now. Okay. So the first poll question is the relationship between Indian textile crafts and Indian fashion is here are the options beneficial to the fashion and textile craft sector, exploits the craft sector, creates a sustainable demand for traditional textile crafts, is an important driver for making traditional textiles contemporary and not beneficial to either. So, is this relationship, out of all these options, what do you think this relationship is currently for Indian textiles? And please go ahead and vote for this, and we will come back to the poll answer in a bit. Uh, Gaurav, very briefly before we move on, let me ask you, what do you think is the relationship between the textile sector and fashion? Very briefly, what is the essence of it?
Out of these, or you want to know my
No, your opinion. We'll come back to the poll answer later.
So I always see textile and fashion like photography and films. So in photography you have a static frame, and when you combine them, it becomes a moving image. So it's the same thing. It's you. I mean, textiles is the backbone, for fashion. So I think they're interdependent, and textiles I think is more powerful as far as I'm concerned than fashion, just because of the fact that. They can do a lot more. Like with textiles, you can do a lot more. It could be a textile art, it could just be textiles, and it's very tactile. You need to kind of touch and see, and uh, right. So I think they're definitely like dependent on each other, and yeah, I think that's
I think that's interesting, and we're going to discuss more about how you have explored this idea of textile and fashion because you've trained as both, and it'll be interesting to discuss that later. Could we get the poll answer, please, from the audience, and just have a look at that quickly? Okay, so they say creates a sustain. 49% say creates a sustainable demand for traditional textiles. So the fashion industry creates a sustainable demand, which is good. I think most people agree on that. And the second is 36% say it is beneficial. So, like you said, I think it's interdependent, and they do they do benefit each other in some way. I Textiles, as you said, is a backbone of Indian fashion. So I think it's an important correlation. Um, so let us go now. Gaurav has very kindly prepared a presentation, and I'd like you to maybe share with us your journey, and I'd like the audience to know a little more about your upbringing, your background, your upbringing. The format of this session is going to be divided into sort of very loosely into like a past, present, future. So we're going to look at your journey through each of these stages and have a conversation on each part. So Gaurav, I think I am going to be sharing your presentation and you'll walk us through it. So let me just share screen for all of you and we can begin. Just 1 second. Uh, okay. Let me just start this. Oops. I'm not able to see Gaurav's presentation. Swapna, I think my computer is not showing up as presentation. Would you be able to share it, if possible? Let me try again. We'll just give Swapna and team. Oh, sorry. Here we go. I think it's sharing it now. Sorry about that, guys. Just I'm putting it online. Gaurav, are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay, super. So as you tell me to move ahead, I'll keep going.
Okay, so as Aditi mentioned, I'm audible, right?
Yeah.
Can we go back? Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, as Aditi mentioned, about what I do. So I call my studio Akaro. It's a Sanskrit term, which means the beginning. In a way, it's auspicious beginning. And the narrative we have is called Look Within, Seek Within, which basically means that everything is within, and rather than looking outside, we should look inside. And that's what really informs all my work. So, we generally have this term called uh, getting inspired. So, you have to look outside. I say look inside. So, that's what it is. Yeah, we'll go to the next slide. So navigating and learning textiles. So I come from a very, very small city just on the outskirts of Delhi. It's called Rohtak in Haryana. I don't know if anybody of you is familiar or anybody in the audience is aware of the city or comes from that part. And I've had a very sort of a normal upbringing like any of us in India, like a middle class small city family. My father used to be in business and he was in food grains. So there is something called an Anaj Mandi. He used to work there. We come from, and I have a huge family, a lot of siblings. So I've had a very, very active childhood where I've actively played a lot of sports. We used to have a lot of playgrounds around the house. And I still have my house in the bazaar. So in Delhi, we have Chandni Chowk, the old city. So it's very busy, very bustling part of the city. So I've grown up in a bazaar kind of an atmosphere where the moment you step out, there are chaat shops, tikki shops, food stalls, all sorts of noises, smells, colors. Uh, and I've had a very, very active childhood. Like I was very active in the sense that like these days, a lot of kids, most of us are on cell phones and gadgets. We were almost always into sports. So either would be playing post our school time or in the evening, or he would go in the morning. And further to that, I left my city to study in another school and I went to one of my uncle's house in a city called Panipat, which is again in Haryana. It's almost, we call it Manchester of India. It's the textile hub. There is a lot of textile which gets exported from there, and mostly it's home furnishings, which is carpets, curtains, bed covers, cushion covers, all those kind of things. So all my extended family was into that. Like all my uncles used to have handlooms and factories where they would produce and then they would export. So what used to happen is post school, I would end up in a school bus, which would drop me to one of my uncle's factory, and then I wait for somebody to come and pick me up on a scooter. Uh, And I never liked those looms because they were dirty factories, a lot of uh, dust, a lot of dust pollution, threads, and all the weavers used to play loud music. I was very interested in music, and I wanted to be a musician actually. I used to sing and I used to play a lot of instruments, and I composed also when I was in class 11th and 12th. But music, and this is, I'm talking 1998, 99. And I used to paint a bit, not much, and I used to sketch, not much again. But I was always lost in my own world, which is mostly music, I think. I would listen to a lot of serious poetry, and I used to listen to Mirza Ghalib in class 9th, 10th, 11th. So basically, what I'm trying to say is I was definitely geared towards something more creative in terms of disciplines, but music was not a very prospective industry in those days, and I couldn't see any future in it. And obviously, there was no internet. So, because we had a family background in textiles, so I ended up sitting for entrance exams of NIFT, and that's another story I think I in itself, which I'll probably sometime later can tell you because it's a long story what happened with me. But let's say by chance or I was destined to, I got into a course, an undergraduate course at NIFT Delhi, which was fashion design and information technology.
I just wanted to, sorry, Gaurav, I just wanted to switch to this very
Yeah,
specific picture
that's
of
me.
yours.
So that's me in class 2 or 3, I think. And that the backdrop, you asked me what is my memory of textiles. So this was a photo studio in those days, and this watercolor. So basically, I think I was always in my subconscious. These things stay. All the smaller things stay with you while you're growing up, and I mean, obviously, at this age, I will not choose my own clothes, but they're quite retro, and I really like. And funnily, a lot of my work is stripes now. So I would say either my mother had a very good aesthetic, so I was always dressed up nicely and clean, and I think not like really over the top, and that's what I do now. Can you go to the next image? Let's see this. Right. Yeah. So I learned the textiles at NIFT, and I think everyone used to tell me, I think that I was good at textiles, which I never understood. Though I was registered in fashion course, but I was too lazy to make clothes, and I never understood how you put a sleeve or how you put a neck, or how do you cut or how do you stitch. I didn't know any of it, and I was a very, I think, a rebellious kind of a student. Like an unusual kid, because I used to question a little too much. So if my faculty would tell me draw a sketch, so you have to draw a fashion croquis in a certain measurement, and I could never do it. And I would ask them, who's told you that it should be so much waist and so much height? Because I think it's nonsense, and I think the idea should be that we should convey. It should be how you communicate your what you want to sketch or draw, and like get your idea out. So why do I need to do in a certain proportion? So I had a mind of my own, and I used to think in my own sense, and I could not get my head around towards the clothing part of it. I still don't. And uh, in my final year, I ended up making clothes, fabrics out of waste materials. And then I was told I won all the awards, pretty much all the awards. And I got a lot of press also, in the newspapers like Times of India and Hindustan Times. And in those days, so I graduated in 2002 from NIFT, and I had to get so much press. Used to be a big deal. And I got a lot of money from my college because I won the awards. And then, I made these fabrics which had recycled paper. And I had an idea that if I sell it and if somebody washes it and if the paper melts, they'll beat me up. So I thought I need a second degree because my second degree will make my base very strong. And then with the help of a few of my teachers, I ended up enrolling in a course which was specifically for woven textiles in London, at Chelsea College of Art and Design. And I did woven textiles there, where I learned the entire basics, and my foundation became very strong. And then I kind of moved back again to India. I did weave my own fabrics for 2 years, 3 years in London, and uh, I moved back
Can I go
around.
to that slide? There's a slide
So
here.
this is paper. So this is the fabric which I'm It's hand woven paper and cotton. This I made in my NIFT days. This is my final graduation project. And this paper used to stink. So this guy who's wearing it, actually, he couldn't breathe properly. But this is how we used to work. And the background of the wall is actually, it's that whole stain on the walls. It's a very bad wall. And we didn't have digital cameras. It's shot on a roll. So this was a kind of, so I made fabrics with waste materials like paper. We used a lot of polythene. We used a lot of plastic. We used a lot of electric wires which were thrown out of use, and audio cassette tapes. So what people now call sustainable upcycling, recycling, I think I did it back then in 2002. And this was more experiment. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it became a hit. And because this white thing which you see in this is paper, so I thought if you wash, it'll go away. And that's what put me forward. So I do like a second degree, which I ended up doing. Okay, let's stay at this slide. So this is in my second degree, one of the things which I found very different was it was very hands-on. So there was no theory. On the first day in college, they gave me a loom. I got a full-fledged hand loom. And they said, okay, you have to weave. And I didn't know how to weave. I started playing with the loom and I kind of liked it. I think it was very meditative. It was a very slow process. I was the only boy in the entire campus, which was another story in its own. I think there were 120 girls and I was the only boy. So I would hardly talk. I would only do my work. I was a very serious and intense kid, very observant, very shy, very sort of quiet. And for 2 years, I kept on weaving. And then in the final year, they told us that we have to do a final project. And, in the final project, everyone tries to do out of the world kind of work. They want to prove some point. So the narrative which I told you earlier, look within, seek within, that's where it comes from. So when I did my final project, nothing was inspiring. Like people say, oh, we get inspired. I think it's very tough to get inspired. If you can get inspired once in a year, that's a lot. Because you have to have an inspiration which makes you think, where you question things. With every project you should grow as a human being. Design is a very fantastic discipline. So unlike other businesses, it teaches you a lot about your own self. And when you're studying, it's like making films. It's almost like when you're doing a research, you learn about new things, about the subject you want to do, work upon, whatever you read. There's so much research. And if you have a very strong design process, one thing will lead you to something else. So in my final project, I didn't really know what I would like to work on in terms of, nothing was inspiring. And my college was next to a river called Thames. So, as I said, I was very interested in music. We used to have Discmans those days, like a CD case, and you put your earphones and you play the music, unlike your mobile phones now.
I don't think anybody knows exactly what that looks like, but we're going to visualize it in their head.
So we used to record all the music on a CD, like different songs of different albums. And we used to have this Discman, like a CD player, which you keep in your pocket, a circular Discman. And I had an SLR camera, a roll camera. And I said, okay, let's do a project called In Search, because I was looking for something. I called it In Search. And I said, let's find out about what makes me happy and what makes me sad. So I just started taking pictures around the river. Every time I was on a happy beat in the music. So this is one of the images. It's a bus stand of the London bus, and there's a pigeon there. And from this, I've done this color story, if you can see, and then I dyed these samples. So I looked at things which make me happy, and I looked at things which make me sad. So I looked at joy and fear, and I clicked these images, and then from these images, let's say, you get your color, which I dyed, and then from that I weave. So I came up also with my own design process. So I would say between NIFT and London experience, NIFT gave me a very solid base, because I used to talk a lot to my friends from other departments. And as we were not from Delhi, we had hostels. We never used to waste any single minute. And, I was always in the library. I used to love being in the library, explore the books and read a lot. And I had a very strong opinion. I was an argumentative kid. Like if you're talking to me, you will spend hours. Entire campus knew that he's one guy who would bore you with his talks. And London, I went totally quiet. I learned the technical part of it. I learned how to set up a loom, how to weave. It was a lot of struggle. It was like a labor of love. And in the process, let's go to the next slide. Yes, I came up with my own process. So this is on the left, what you see is fear, the black and the brown, and on the right, what you see is joy, which is the light colors. This is also my old work. Like this is my final year's work. So yeah, and can we go back now to the first slide? The first, sorry. Yeah, okay, after this, yes. No, next. And then next, and then, yeah, that's it. So, yeah, that's it. So then I came to India, and I think basically to give you a very quick background, in terms of textiles and the genesis of textiles, what is India, what Indian textiles are about, what is the story. What I'm going to tell you in the next 20 minutes is what I've learned over a period of last 20 years. So, uh, Indian textiles, our story in India is textiles. It's the craft sector. It's not fashion really. If in a sense you want to understand what fashion is, we had a very rich idea of fashion, but as a term and as an industry, it's a very Western idea, narrative. It's a very Western narrative. We had a very rich culture where everything in our lifestyle or in our culture was very rich, and we have very symbolic traditions. We have very symbolic ideas, uh, which now a lot of people say we were orthodox, or a lot of people say we were backward. Uh, but that was the richness of life. We used to celebrate life in India, and that's what fashion really is. It's a celebration. You know, it's about your belief systems. It's about your expression. It's about your communication. It's about your day-to-day life. So we always had that, but the backbone of that, as in the beginning when we spoke about the relation between textile and fashion, was the textiles, which was the most interesting part and the stronger part. Uh, so what you see in this slide is a textile which is cotton and silk from 1880, which is almost 200 years back now. This is from Victoria and Albert Museum's archive, and it's a sari. So if you see this sari then, and if you go to the region of Madhya Pradesh, and if you see the textiles now, if you see the pure textiles, when I say pure, I mean authentic. It'll be the same, pretty much the same. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen similar saris into some village people, or maybe in your households, or wherever. So, we've had a very, very strong tradition of woven textiles, and textiles is the oldest craft. We have three things which are essentials for human beings. In Hindi, we call it roti, kapda, and makan, which is food, shelter, and cloth. So without these things, you can't live. So that's the inception, or let's say the genesis of where textiles come from. And I mean, obviously this talk is not about the technical part of it, so I won't go into the details, but just for you to understand, the rest everything came later. First what we got was food, then what we got was, we started doing pakka houses and textiles, agriculture. In that, two things which were growing very fast was food and crops, which eventually became textiles. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, second, sorry. I think we're running. Yeah, this. So now this is an image of which I clicked myself around 2006 or 7. It's a small village called Midnapur in West Bengal, where textiles also is the second largest industry after agriculture in terms of employment in India. So every city and village and everywhere you have people engaging into textiles. Textiles doesn't mean just the fabric. Textiles also mean associated industries with it, which means yarn growing, which means yarn spinning, which means dyeing. So many things. There are processes, there are different stages. So all the people become a part of it. So here what they're doing is they are basically making a hank. Hank is when you get a yarn from a mill, it's on a cone form, and they convert it into a hank. That's what she's doing. So the reason this slide is there also is that, just to tell you that it is a part. So in Panipat, if you go, every person is engaged in this craft. My work happens in a village called Fulia, 3 hours from Calcutta. Every household in Fulia is engaged in textiles. And similarly, there are cities in every state. So you have Kanchipuram, Banaras, Chanderi, you have Behrampur, you have Bardhaman, you have Barabanki, Faizabad, everywhere. So all the crafts, like for glass, you would go to one part of India. For beads, you might go to some other part. For leather, you might go to other part. So like that. Now, but what happens is, but with so much craft, if you read the tag, like the description of which I've written, you know, we've had so much craft around us always. Like with me, I've always like, because we grow up around so many things, we take things for granted. Whatever you have, you never value it, right? If you want a new phone in the market, you're very excited. The new phone comes to you after a few days, you're like, chuck it. You want to get the next new phone. Similarly is the story in India. We have had so much craft. If any one of you have been to khadi stores 10 years back, all the stores are almost crumbling. They were like coming down, very, very bad state. Why? Because our government doesn't realize, the countrymen don't realize the value of it. We don't celebrate it. It's available, okay, we take it for granted. So it was in a very, very bad state, especially in 2005, 6, 7, between 90s, early 90s, late 90s, and then early 2000s. From a design point of view, Indian textile industry was not very exciting. Let's go to next. Aditi, I can't hear you.
Yeah, Gaurav, I think we're going to go a little faster with the next slides because we're going to then run out of time. So I'm just going to go forward and keep going.
Okay, so that's
just go through.
That's me from my degree show setup at Chelsea. It's 2005, and all these panels which you see, I wove myself, and I had to paint the wall at the back. Okay, let's go to the next. This is the final image of what I'd created right from scratch. I made all of them myself. Fear and joy both, and in search. Okay, we'll go to the second now, chapter 2. So this is why when I came back, as I've already told you that we used to take crafts for granted, and there was nothing in India. We only had a fashion week, and not many people used to use textiles in fashion. They used to go buy the fabric and make clothes. So when I set up Akaro as a design studio, my clear idea was I wanted to bring the master craftsmanship to the foreground of the Indian textile scene, but take it to a very international audience. Because what used to happen was we used to be seen as a dump ground or a sweatshop or a production hub. So a French brand or a British brand or an American brand, they come here, they take your work, they put their name and they sell. They don't trust us when it comes to design. They don't respect us when it comes to anything else. They only want us to make it. So my idea was to hell with all of them. I thought we are very good. I thought we just need a little bit change. We need to modernize the design language. And you can say there was a little bit of a nationalism. I've always been a very like a patriotic individual also. I mean, all of us are, but to me, it was very irritating and frustrating when I used to go out and, see them dancing on our things. And I would be like, okay, very good, right? It all belongs to us. But anyhow, so if the slide before this, I call it happiness on handloom. Yeah, happiness on handloom. So, a lot of you must have heard a lot about hand woven, textiles, looms, what designers do. Oh, we are helping the weavers, we are reviving. It's all bullshit. Nobody's helping anybody. They're all helping themselves because end of the day, it's business and everyone needs to make money, right? So the narrative which we use in textiles at Akaro is we don't say any of that. We say we enjoy weaving. It is about creating happiness on handlooms. That is why we worked on handlooms. It gives me peace. When I see a fabric out of a loom, it gives me goosebumps. That's the reason I work on the loom. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is the first time when we set up our studio. This is from 2008, and this is a big sort of shift in what I'm doing now. So what used to happen in India was, still it's the same. All the designers will go to the weavers in the village, take their design on paper, give it to them, and then come back, and the weavers will send it to you, and that is how it's done. And I said, no, we will not do it. I said, we will bring the loom to the city, because I need to do things in front of me, because I will learn more. So we bought a loom. These are two master craftsmen from two different regions. Every region is very different in terms of the specialization. I thought, let's mix them. They will learn from each other. One of the shorter one who's sitting ran away in 5 days. The elder one who's standing, we call him Dada. His name is Gopal Basak. He's been with me right till now. It's 13 years and we are going strong. He works with me. For last 13 years, he's been working with me, creating textiles. So this is my studio in on the outskirts of Delhi, which we used to have in those days. And this is the first warp. This is actually the first time at Akaro when we were setting up a warp, which is the arrangement of yarns. Okay, next one. It's again the same from the same time. This was the loom we had set up, and we're preparing for our first collection. So in this image, you see on the left, you see the warp mechanism, and on the right, you see what I did with my college project in London. Now, what I'm basically trying to say is, everything which I see, to me, it looks the same. There is no fresh language within design itself. There is no recall value. All the designers do the same thing. It's almost like, an easy example for you is, if any of you watches TV, there was this last 10 years when Ekta Kapoor started making Saas Bahu serials, and everyone started making Saas Bahu serials, So in India, what happens is, if one person does it, everyone does the same. So it's called stereotyping. And I was never very, very happy with that, because it's very boring. It's like a rat race, run of the mill kind of stuff. So Indian textiles were largely represented by the government of India under Khadi, Gram Udyog, or KVICs, or weaving clusters. And a government of India runs a lot of programs, because, as I said earlier, it's the second highest employable industry after agriculture. So the government has to take care of things. So it becomes very boring. Then you have these high street stores, which are again very, very traditional. Most of them are doing the same thing. There is nothing exciting in terms of language. And then there is a lot of documentation which our government does, which is fine because they need to do that, but that's about it. So the potential of what handlooms could have done or textiles could have done largely with the help of design literally went unnoticed, because nobody really paid attention to that. That's what we wanted to do with Akaro. This is one of the images which was clicked in the village in 2008 again, and it's wool. So just to show you, like, the colors are very basic, it's wool, and it's a very modern colorway from that point of view. So by the right imagery, right colors, right everything, you can make so much difference. Let's go to next. This is a very iconic image for me. It's shot in 2007, the same time. It's my first project with which I participated in London Craft Week. So imagine I had to go to London to participate in a craft week and not in India, because I thought what I was doing, because in Indian Craft Week, there were mostly craftsmen. And there is a huge difference between a craftsman and a designer. And I think in India, we never understood that up until now, especially in the craft sector. So this is shot in Hooghly River in West Bengal in a boat. And the reason I say iconic, because it's a very fresh image for 2007. We had no model, we had no clutter, it's just the focus is on the fabric. And this image got picked up, and it got printed by a lot of international books also. And we really enjoyed shooting this. So also what you really need to do is, you need to treat your subject very well. You need to treat your textiles in terms of imagery, in terms of idea, in terms of narrative. What are you communicating? Again, the same collection. This is shot on a steamer between Howrah Bridge and one of the parts, we took a boat like a steamer and we put the scarf on the thing and we shot. Uh, so this for this collection, I was looking at a film called Babel, which was shot in 3 different countries. So we shot our collection in 3 different cities, and we wanted a human element in it, and we wanted it to be a part of it. Yeah, let's go to the next one. And this is where I eventually started working. So Origin is the London Craft Fair, as I told you, where I used to participate, and London Fashion Week with the British Fashion Council. I used to do all these sustainable fabrics then, but I think we were way ahead of our times.
Gaurav, are you online or have we lost you for a second? Gaurav, I think we lost you for a second.
Yeah, because there was a small glitch, electricity glitch. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good.
So these are the places where Akaro started. You know, the first 2-3 seasons I participated in London, I used to make scarves and take them. Okay, next. And these are the places we used to sell from. Livingston Studios is one of the most iconic. It was one of the most iconic galleries where you could sell, and Aspects was in Portsmouth. So different galleries like that, just to show you. And then the collaborations which we did, this was with Jimmy Choo. Again, the very celebrated international footwear brand. So the fabric is Akaro, where I've made it with stainless steel, silk, and cotton. And this is what we were trying to do in India when we came back, when I moved back. So as I said, India didn't have any platforms. So we started with this idea where we said, okay, let's create our own show. And we did this.
Gaurav, are you there? I think we've maybe lost Gaurav again. Let's just wait for a second for him to come back. I think maybe he's having some power outages on his end. Maybe this time, maybe while we're at it, we can take a poll question while Gaurav comes back online. I can just stop share this and maybe Swapna can share the poll question while we're waiting for Gaurav to join back. Swapna, if you can. Okay, great. Let's just. Hi, Gaurav, you're back.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
No worries. We actually thought we'll take a quick poll question before we come back. So it's online. Let me take a quick one. So our next poll question is, and since Gaurav is also talking about upcycling sustainable practices, which he started right from the beginning, our question is the most unsustainable practice in textile and fashion industry today is, first option is production and textile waste. Second, fast fashion and individual consumption. Third, low wages to artisans. Fourth, working with non-recyclable or unsustainable materials. And fifth is the mass production and sweatshops. So we would like our audience to weigh in and give us their selections. And in the meantime, let me come back to Gaurav's presentation and we can pick up from where we left off. Hey Gaurav, I think we can come back to the poll answer in a bit. Let's continue with your presentation.
Yeah, Gaurav? So I was basically talking about the shows. I don't know where I left you, but India didn't have any platforms before 2010 to show craft in a very contemporary way. In India, most of it has always been very traditional, and I think all of us, you, me, Srishti, we've all been fighting this, in our own ways and trying to sort of communicate the changes. So these were the shows we set up, and this is where I started showing in India. You can go to next. So I used to make the textiles and then go back to the UK. Mostly that's what I did. And these are some Korean girls looking at what I did. It has stainless steel. So when they used to look at my work, most of them used to get very amazed and like surprised, because it was quite contemporary and it was very fresh. And I think that really helped a lot. And it was a new way of looking at what Indian textiles or what Indian craft could do in terms of how much can we push. Okay, next. So this is innovation and process which is again kind of linked with. So what we still now spoke was mostly my past in terms of what I was doing. Now we would look at innovation and process, and how I work and the ideology. This is present. Present would include between 2010 to 2020. So initially, when I started showing clothes, the idea was not to make money. I was so driven and passionate about my work. I just used to love making. This is one of the pieces which is showed on a runway. I call it Jatayu. Okay, let's go to the next one. So a project which I did, which was a fashion week collection. It was based on a documentary called Koya and Iskadzi. You all must look at this, see this, take a picture of it if you can. Right away, I'll give you 5-10 seconds to do that. In next 10 seconds, you take a picture of this and you look it up on YouTube and you must watch it. It's a documentary.
Oh, I can see the music is by Philip Glass. Nice.
Okay. So Koya Niskatsi was, I came across it in London. I was given a tour of the V&A, and there was a show going on postmodernism. And there were only two clips in postmodernism. One was Koya Niskatsi and one was Blade Runner. And I saw this sequence, what you see right now. There's a sequence, it's called the grid. And when I saw this, and there was some amazing music, and I was just frozen. I loved it. And at the same time, I was approached by a crystal making Austrian company called Swarovski. If anyone of you have heard of it, they wanted me to weave the fabrics with Swarovski, which nobody really liked the idea, because what I was doing was very minimalistic, and what Swarovski used to do was very bling. But I saw the grid, and when I looked at it and I thought Swarovski could be really integrated into something like this, I said yes to them. Let's go to the next. These are the work in progress images from my studio 2011, on the left and on the right. And if you see it on the left, the shape and the way we have cut it is actually taken from the images of Koya and Iskadzi. And so is the right one. And if you see the white part on the black, these are the Swarovski crystals which glow in night. So it was all hand draped and they were very, very experimental. Next. This is my poster of the same collection for my show at the Fashion Week. It was called Framed But Changed. So if you see in this, we have shown a tree kind of a idea, and then it goes to become an electric pole, like a dry tree, becomes an electric pole. So, we are not using, I don't work around my work and take off the idea of environmental friendly work or what you call sustainability or ethical practices just because it's a trend. I get affected by it. It makes me think. I get very stressed and worried. And I've always been very conscious. So as early as 2012, we wanted to talk about these things. And this is what this poster signifies. And Koya Niskadzi, in a way, also talks about this. It was made in 1981. So, so the process largely is that I work a lot with urban ideas, things which make me think, as I said in the beginning. So Koya Niskadzi made me think where the world is headed, what's going to happen to us as a human race. And then I kind of transfer them through the process into things. And this is what it becomes. Okay, let's go to the next one. Business of fashion. Okay, so fashion is largely not just about making. As I said that I did it mostly for passion. So you have a left brain and a right brain. You think from heart or you think from brain. So I was the one who used to think from heart. So the guy who's saying, "Who are you today?" is me, and right brain thinker, and the couple talking is my friends. So I was always short on money, and I've always had issues because I used to do very experimental work, and I never used to never used to worry about the commercial part, and it won't sell, which made me like this. We got in a very stressful situation as an organization where we never used to have money because we used to make things which nobody would buy, but everyone would appreciate. They were like very conceptual. And in fashion, it happens a lot. So if you look at designers like Alexander McQueen or, Galliano and a lot of these designers abroad, and even in India, we've had 2-3 of my friends earlier who don't exist anymore. It happens. We'll go to next. So what I started doing was, I thought, okay, people first need to understand what I do. So this is a loom in my new studio where currently we are right now, where I'm talking from. We started doing studio tours and we started inviting people to go through what we do, what is the process, so that they understand how it's made. Because unless and until you don't know what goes into making, you will never appreciate and you'll never spend and you'll never pay the money. You go for all these international brands like Louis Vuitton and so many else. Um, a lot of times we don't know what goes in the making, but you still pay because there's an aspirational value. So we need to create the same for our own textiles, our own craft, our own design, our own, what we have localized in India. Can we go to the next? This is a wall from my studio where, after doing a lot of work which was very boring, we thought let's make saris, because textile saris was very easy. So we started looking at color and we looked at Indian mythology and we came up with these patterns. So we looked at the third avatar of Vishnu, I think third, yeah, Matsya, which is fish underwater. So there was a lot of water reflections and all those kind of things, which is here. These are the graphic cards which were made from those. So you see a lot of color now here. Next. This is an outcome of that, which is very colorful. And this surprisingly sold a lot. Now, I never understood why, because it didn't really take me that long as the Jatayu piece took or the Swarovski pieces took. There were projects where we took 2 years. This was something which we cracked in like 2 months. And we are selling it till date. It's become like our language. People started identifying with this. But yeah, we were happy selling. Next.
Gaurav, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt and say we will have to run through these because I want to keep some time for the Q&A and some questions as well.
Yeah. So these are the runway images of the same collection where you see a lot more color. We've contemporized a bit of Indian wear a little bit. Next. This is now a mix of, can we go back one slide back? So it's a mix of this and the Jatayu and the Swarovski. Can we go to the next? Next one. Yeah, here now what we've done is, I never liked doing totally commercial work out and out. And the conceptual work was not getting me anywhere. So we thought, let's take a midway. So what we used here is we use styling, the help of styling to really make it our own. So the pieces are very simple. They're basically Pret daily wear pieces. But if you look at the footwear, you look at the hair, it's gray. You look at the jewelry, it's ceramic, which is handmade. It created a lot of curiosity. And again, we colored the hair because I thought, why always models have black hair? Why they always are, like, it's always like very gelled and proper, because as humans, we're not proper. So small things, here and there makes a lot of difference. Again, the same thing. We've got the colored hair, black and white. This is wool, what she's wearing. So I wanted to show a very strong lady, same girl. So it's a young girl in her 20s. We colored her hair. I wanted to make her look a little old. And I wanted to show a lot of empowerment and strength, because I think a lot of my clothes are about that. It's again the same thing. You see a lot of material innovation. There is stainless steel on the one in the right. So you look at the salwar suit and dupatta. This is my version of a salwar suit and dupatta, where we took a dress, we took a wide hem trouser, we took the idea of this shawl kind of a dupatta, but more like a wraparound. So these are handlooms, but they don't look like, those khadi dresses, the jhola dresses, which everyone wears, A-line. Literally all the brands are doing it. And I have a problem with that, because I think, can we go back? I think it's not a good idea always to do the same. So if you experiment, you can make handlooms also very edgy. You can make them very futuristic. This is what it is. This was my first very, very big show we had done. And we mixed a lot of materials. We used a bit of leather. We used, mostly it's silk, cotton, and things like that. But this is what you come up with. So it's very Indian in its language, in its idea, but it's very global. It's very current. It's very modern. It's very cutting edge. Let's go to next. This is a sari. Again, everyone would show sari with, how they shoot the bridal campaigns of these big brands, one guy, one girl, or four guys, four girls in some palace, some traditional songs going on, some elephants doing things. I used to hate it. And I thought, why, if I don't want to look like a joker and get dressed up like that, why can't we make it a little bit more interesting? Question the idea. So this is a fabric which we had created, which we called a liquid molten metal, which became so iconic. Like, it's our fastest selling thing. It was very transparent and it reminds me of steel, and it's very futuristic, so it's a sari. So we said, okay, let's just drape it and do something which is a little bit more sort of, it makes you think, it pushes the idea. This is very current. This is sent to me one of my clients in Germany. So this girl is again a designer. She bought from us online. It's the same version of the older one. It's golden. There was a silver, and I think we are in very interesting times, and we are in very different times. And I think we need to have a very natural and an organic voice. When I say organic, I'm not talking about organic like that. When I say natural, I'm saying pure, and I'm saying honest. And we use this image. I really love this image because it speaks a lot to me. And the fact that she's very happy, and it's a very strong image. Again, it gives you a lot of strength. And I think as a brand and as a studio, that's what we are. You know, knowingly, unknowingly, we people who wear a caro, we are all about strength, inner strength. We are all about it's because we are all vulnerable, man, women, all of us. But end of the day, we need to pull ourselves together and go out. So what I do with my work is I question. I don't do work where it's just sweet, pretty looking things, which is also fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But personally, I think one must question, one must ask questions. And if you are in a creative discipline, what's the better way to do that? Uh, I mean, you must do it in your work, and it's this is what happens then. Again, one of the same ideas. This is the present, like what. So the way we are shooting our campaigns now, because we are in the world of times of Instagram, and it's all about, people don't ask about the product, how good or bad it is, which is a very sad situation. The only thing you're interested is in film stars, who's wearing it, how big your campaign is, how much money you've spent, how exotic it looks. I hate all that crap, because I think end of the day, it's about your product, it's about the idea. The focus should be on product. So in these images, we've shown young girls of an urban landscape from a city like Delhi, Bangalore, wherever. They're just wearing these clothes and they're moving about. So visually, what it does to you becomes very important. The arrangement, the colors, and body language, and the way they're shot. And we don't give you a context. When I say a context, we are not giving you anything in the backdrop, because the moment I give you a context, you'll already come to a conclusion. You'll made a decision in your head. Oh, this is for this. This brand is for a wedding wear. It could no. This is. It is up to you what you want to do with it. It's up to you where you want to wear it. It's for you to look. It's very abstract. All of them, all these images. This is our campaign from 2018, where again we were working on the idea of strength, duality. We were looking at people who live on the mountains and how life is tough for them. This is what we came up with. Nothing is made up. There are no sets. These are all shot in real locations. It's not gimmicky. They're very honest pictures. And I don't shoot too much. Our version of a lehenga, though we are launching a bridal version of lehenga now, but again, and how Indian craft can be so modern and international. We don't have to run after what they're doing in the West. We have to come up with our own ways, put our heads together, and come up with our own language, which is today's India. What is today's India? That's what it is about. These are the runway images of the same clothes. Can we go to the next? So here it's a very interesting shoot. It's called Jogi. It's my spring summer 2020, very current. So we wanted to look at the functionality of textiles. This campaign, I think you'll find it on Instagram. You can go and see. We shot where the girl is just moving. Shot in my house in Delhi, and we told her just to keep moving because my clothes are flexible. They can stretch. We wanted to communicate that. So we were like, okay, let's just keep moving and then see what happens. And there was a lot of movement in it. Yeah. Next. Craft couture. So what is couture? If I don't know if you've been taught, I will not give you the exact definition of what couture is, but let's call it something very, very special. Let's call it something which is made to order, which is done for a very special day, one-off pieces where you don't create something after you've created once. It's only made individually. A lot of the royalty in the past used to get things commissioned for international jewelry brand like a Van Cleef Arpels. Again, a lot of these bigger French brands used to work for Indian kings. That's the actual story. We used to give them business, which we still do. So craft to me is, I came up with this term. This is my term. I call it craft couture. because it's so special. Even if you're making a simple fabric like this, now this is a jacket which is made from all our studio waste in Delhi, in the studio. Whatever is left, we make and do this. This is some girl in Sydney who's wearing it, and she sent us this picture. All these pieces are individually made. Next, this is textiles don't necessarily need to be restricted only to clothes. These are the patterns and ideas. If I scale them up, they can work artworks. This is my next project, which I'm doing. This is all future now we are talking. This is a 2021, 2022, where we're going to do a crossover now between clothing and art, because there is so much work which goes into it. It's a lot about scalability. If I scale up the same idea, for example, the image on the right, it has a lot of thread work on it. Now, if I make it 50 feet high, and if I increase the thickness of the thread, the moment you look at it, no, it'll intimidate you. That's what, because textiles is all about materials. It's about volume. It's like architecture. So we are exploring these things now. This is the next collection which we're going to showcase. It's again, how interestingly saris. How can you drape? How can you change? How can you contemporize it? What is the modern idea? Next. This, I think, is the last slide. It's a very important slide. It's just to tell you, that no dream is small, and we should all see dreams. I don't even know when it happened. It happened on its own. Somebody was watching my work, I think, studying my work. So I didn't even know that it's happening, and they decided to do the story on me, and 5 of us in terms of designers, but they put me on it because what they said was very interesting. They said, here is something which is very underground, where we're talking purely about the work. We are not using Bollywood for marketing. We are not getting into gimmicks. It's authentic, it's pure, it's Indian, and it's contemporary. And it's from a small town city. Like, I come from a small town. This is the story of New India. It's the first time a political magazine like India Today has put a fashion designer on a cover in their history of 44 years. So it was a very, very big moment also for Indian fashion, that the power of it, that things can be moved and this can happen.
Thank you.
I think that was the last slide.
Yeah, I think this is the last one. This is, of course, your Instagram social media.
Yeah, so these are the Instagram handles in the website. You can all follow this just so that you are engaged with it and you understand what we're doing. Yeah.
Okay, just going to stop share now. Thank you, Gaurav. Can you, is your video on, or can you come on video? That would be great. Okay, thank you so much for that deep dive into your work. And we have a lot of questions coming up. So I'm going to actually go straight into Q&A. But before doing that, I just want to bring up the poll answer, the second poll question that we asked. Okay, great. So the question was, what the most unsustainable practice in textile and fashion industry today is? And 47% were said working with non-recyclable or unsustainable materials. And after that, 22% said fast fashion and individual consumption, and followed by low wages to artisans, and then production and textile wastes. Now, this is interesting. I think most people look at sustainability when it comes to industry, the fashion industry and textile, as being something that needs to either use recyclable material or use sustainable materials. Let me ask you, Gaurav, just very quickly before we move to Q&A. When talking about sustainability, you have mentioned in the past, and this is a quote on your website, sustainability is not measurable. It is a personal commitment. Could you elaborate a little more about what this means to you and what sustainability means to you in your work today?
It is we can do a session individually on its own because it's a big topic, and so it's more than the materials, more than anything about, other than anything, it is about how much do you understand it, and what are you doing about it in your own capacity. That's first. Why I say it's an individual commitment is because it is a commitment. It is, you have to make sure. I'll ask you a simple question. All the kids here who are in the audience. How much water do you use when you take shower? Are you mindful of that? If you are, then you're committed. And I mean, I'm not saying don't shower and don't enjoy and don't use, but do you think about it? If you think about it, that means you're sensitized. And if you're sensitized, I would say you
Yeah,
are
it's really on
giving
your
it a
way to
thought.
becoming.
Just
Yeah,
just by saying that, oh, the material is unsustainable, so it's not sustainable, is a wrong thing, because see, in totality, it's again not an Indian idea. It's a Western concept. In India, sustainability means totally something very different. It's in our DNA. We are born with it. We need to understand that. The context changes the moment you bring to India. Now, a material which is unsustainable to people in New York might be very, very sustainable to somebody in a village in Bihar, right? Now, so it's a very complicated subject. The more we know about it, the less we know about it. Nobody knows about it. The basic idea of it is things which are friendly don't harm your nature. Nature has a power to balance in its own right. It can. Humans are a part of the nature. Humans don't own the nature. We are just one fraction. So we just need to see how much it's about consumption, end of the day.
I
How
think
much are you consuming, right? But if you look from a spiritual idea, the idea of humans is to consume. That's why we're here. If you
yeah.
will not consume, you will not grow, right? So the moment I look at a poll like this, I would say everything is sustainable in the question answer session. But from my point of view, I would say what it means to you, how much do you understand it, and how committed you are. Like, does it trouble you? Are you
Yeah.
worried about it? Are you just doing it because everyone else is doing it? So if you're
Yeah.
doing it because everyone else is doing it, not right. If you're genuinely holistically understand it, food, nutrition, your day-to-day life, your fitness, it is all about sustainability. Because if you're not fit, you're going to go to the medical, you go to the medical hospitals, you're going to consume, there is a certain expense on you. That's unsustainable.
Yeah, I think that's true because sustainability just it means anything
It's
that
about discipline.
any part of your life has to be sustained.
Sustainable,
In
yeah.
yeah, in and I think practicing that gives you the right approach even in terms of work and as in your day to day life and even in your professional career. The same thing applies. The fundamentals stay the same. Gaurav, I am going to go to quick Q&A because there are
Yeah.
a million questions that people have, and I want to do justice to these all and start. So let me start with somebody. I'll also read out the name of the person, but the first one is anonymous. Um, what can you say? Can you tell us some key markets and export destinations in the handloom industry? If you can just, and we'll go through them fairly quickly,
It's a
but just
very
brief
vague,
questions.
it's a very vague question. You can export anywhere. You have a market in India. Entire West you can export. It depends on what product you're making.
I think for the handloom industry, we work on a
Everywhere.
global scale now. We can go
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah, yeah. It's everywhere.
Arunima asks, what opportunities do you see in engaging artisans in design and work? I think maybe to answer it.
Again, very generic question. So
Yeah,
it's very, they're innumerable. When you start doing it, you'll figure it out on your own. It's one of the most thriving industries right now. Good collaboration with artisans and designers is always welcome. India is the only country where you have crafts. There is no other country in the world where you have so much craft.
which is
So
what you
this is the
mentioned. It's
future.
everywhere. We just take it for granted. You mentioned it
Yeah,
in your
it's the
presentation.
future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I think I'll go to the next question maybe. Now you've already answered the first part of this question, so I'm not going to read it out. But Megha asks, what are your thoughts on gender fluid fashion, androgynous fashion, etc.?
So again, very Western terms. In India, we had an idea of Ardhanarishwar, which is half male, half female. A lot of our clothing was draped. It was never stitched in the first place, which means that because of our weather, it doesn't allow. And because we used to use anyways handmade fabric, it had a
Yeah,
very big slippage problem. So
yeah,
gender fluid fashion is what I would say from a modern context, you're talking about unisex. And I think forget fashion, you should ask the thoughts on the gender equality or the gender what I say, largely what when we discuss the role of a man and a woman. So, anyways, we are blurring the idea now. It's
Yeah,
almost
yeah,
there,
yeah,
and that reflects in every part and parcel. So be it fashion or even if it's androgynous, I think it's very useful because you can make, like, if it's a couple or if you're a brother sister, just wear whatever. But I also think at the same point, it's very good to have a defined clothing
yeah.
thing because it's a circle. So what happens is, I'm assuming when we had these ideas, okay, a woman should wear this or a man should wear this, we had a reason why we did that, and it eventually became to a point where we become so restricted now that we have this entire nonsense of that a girl can't wear this or a guy can't wear this. I think that's not right. I think it's a very individual expression from a society or a social norm. You have a defined idea, but you can play around that. But still, the idea of a night has to be the idea of a night, and the idea of a day has to be the idea of a day. By which I'm saying a man is a man and a woman is a woman. We are here for different reasons and purposes, and we have different functions from our biological point of view. And somewhere, comfort clothing is to do a lot with functionality and clothing comfort, and I think it should reflect in that.
I think this is interesting. I think mostly when we discuss these kind of concepts, it's more interesting to see how it can be used to experiment and the freedom of dressing the way you want, but also understanding what the differences are. And that's a good point. I'm going to go to the next question. This is an interesting one. It's part of what I've also wanted you to explain to the audience. Your metallic series is very famous. It's infamous. You're very well known for it. And Afia's question is, uh, from where did you get the idea of blending stainless steel in
Stainless
your
steel,
textile?
yeah.
Yeah, in your materials, in the
I
textile.
was very bored with whatever I had, and after working, so it's almost like you eat a pineapple for 15 days, 16 days, you want something else, right? I think that was the beginning, but I also found it very futuristic, and I think it was curiosity, and I'd read about it. A lot of Japanese designers used to use it, especially there's a brand called Nuno in Japan. They used to use it in the 90s. And somehow I like everything which is very futuristic. I like the glaze. I like the idea of future, and it's just exciting. It makes it look sharp. It's very edgy. It's very like uh, it's very modern. It's like it has that killer instinct in it.
Yeah.
So, and I like a lot of it is to do with architecture. Like, so I think mix of things, nothing in particular.
Afia asks another question. What are your unique aspects in designing a sari by westernizing it? I'm not sure if you're westernizing it, but do you have a response to this?
What are you unique is fixing designing a sari by westernizing it? I'm not westernizing it.
Mhm.
I am modernizing it. So
Yeah,
I think there's a difference between Western and modern. Uh, Modernizing it is how I would see someone in my surroundings or my friend circle who would wear a sari. Maybe if you don't want to wear it in a very literal traditional way, I mean, end of the day, it's a 5.5, 6 meters of fabric. You do whatever you want to do with it. It's just that we've defined it as a certain idea that this is how it has to be draped. Um, but I think we don't disturb the actual idea. We never do that. We add a lot of other things, like we add a lot of styling in terms of props, so blouses, belts, how we drape it, maybe in the neck,
yeah,
things
yeah,
like that. And in
yeah,
terms of the actual design, we've done away with. We don't use any booties, traditional motifs, and all
yeah.
that. We keep it very modern geometry. We work with specific forms and scale.
Yeah, and it's very minimalist in that sense. I think your
Yeah,
style is very minimalist and it comes through. And I think the idea is that, like you said, you're not westernizing it, you're modernizing it in the way it's draped. You're experimenting with drape. You're experimenting with accessorizing it, which is a very interesting way of doing it while keeping the fundamental uniqueness of the sari intact and the 5 years of fabrics and years of fabric. Um, Let me go to the next question. Mariam asks, India is rich in traditional embellishments and arts, and they're assets of the country. But why are artisans valued less and get low wages? Well, Mariam, that's anybody's guess. But Gaurav, what is your thought on this?
very, very loaded questions.
Yeah,
So, you need to understand the idea of life in itself. That's the only way I can answer it. Uh, So we live in a fallacy where people think there should be equality, everything should be equal. Everything can never be equal.
Yeah,
Nature doesn't work like that. In nature, nothing is equal. If you go to a forest, one animal eats the other animal. That's how it works. That's the law of life. That's the law of nature. But in today's modern society, again, an idea is which is very predominant, especially in the politics, is equality. Everything should be equal. If everything should be equal, you will never be surviving. You'll all die. We'll all die. So when it comes about the craftsmen and artisans, it has a lot to do with the nature of the work itself. Not every artisan gets paid very less. I do agree, most of them do, but a lot of them actually earn very high also, because it's to do with their own expertise, it's to do with their own intelligence, it's to do with their own business skills. End of the day, it's business.
yeah,
And if there is an artisan who's very good, there are artisans who've prospered. Their kids are now designers. But it's a long idea, because obviously change requires time, and with time
yeah.
things are changing. And it's not just in India; it's everywhere. Why do you say, uh, artisans are valued less? They're not valued less. It's just it's
It's unequal. Some get the
I mean, not
recognition that they
everything is
have.
for everyone.
Yeah,
See, not everything is for everyone. And you also need to understand one thing: good things are always understood and liked by less people.
yeah, yeah.
Majority
Uh,
always go with, they don't understand quality. The better the quality, the lesser the taker. Always.
yeah,
That's the rule.
and that's kind of what was one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and very briefly, the idea of, I've been on a Caro follow for many years, and the way I look at the brand is like you said, it's a sort of a very conceptual, abstract brand and a label, and that's your philosophy. Is this something that you found your customers took a while to understand, or do you think the Indian public understands this approach to textile and design?
So see, India, it's not about the Indian public, it's about the Indian industry. Unfortunately, we are all about pomp and show. And I think we're in very tough times, so the times also call for it. That's nobody's fault. So I don't use any marketing gimmicks, and because we don't market that much, maybe people don't understand. But I also think the beauty of a thing lies, and the purity of a product lies, or anything, not a product. Even if it is music, even if it is poetry, even if it is writing, that the consumer or the audience understand on its own. An artist's job is to create, and the job of a viewer or an audience is to understand it. Again, it's like so when you talk about the masters, a lot of them died and they were not understood in their own times. It was later. But I always think good work, good art is something where you don't need to talk about it. You just do your job and that's it, we're done.
Yeah,
It's for the people to decipher it.
yeah. I have two questions which are sort of connected, so I'm going to ask them both together. Which work which work do you regret or didn't come up to expectation, and what is your most personal or favorite work that you've ever done? So one, what didn't come up to
Okay,
expectation,
that I
and the other,
regret.
yeah,
I don't really regret anything, because it's always work in progress. You're always learning. A lot of it doesn't come to your expectation, because anything which I look back, I always think, what a shitty job, because between last year and this year, I've learned 5 new things. And if I go back in time, I would add these 5 new things to that. So I think the way all of us in design or artwork is like that. It's just that we need to do more. I think one of the things which I can say, I mean, I don't regret, but I wish I could have done, is that I could have created more, because when you create more, you learn more. uh,
yeah,
and also, as I said earlier, we don't communicate. Maybe I could have communicated in a better way. Maybe we could have taken our work to a larger audience, because I think it's important that people should know what we do. And as far as the favorite work is concerned, there is nothing like that. I think personally, what I like never sells. What I don't like always sells.
it's
So
always
it's
like that.
always,
It's always a
yeah, it's
dichotomy of
always,
that. And nobody can figure it out. All designers, I think, face the same similar problem.
yeah. So
Um,
now we take a lot of cues from what sells, and then it's
yeah.
well balanced. But if given a chance, I would not like to think about sales, and I would just like to create for the visual beauty of it.
Okay. So we've got not too much time more, so I'm going to go through the other questions. This one is an anonymous one. what I think what they're trying to ask is what advice would you give upcoming fashion designers? What should a fashion design student focus on? Any general advice or any specific advice you have?
I would say always believe in yourself and have faith, because it's not an easy industry. It's quite cutthroat, and also it's changing very fast now. It's very cutthroat, and technology is changing very very fast. Also, don't take shortcuts. One of the complaints I have with the younger lot, people who come to us for internships, is they're always very restless and they're always in a rush, and they want things their way. It doesn't work like that. Maybe these days it does, maybe in our times it was not, but I sometimes wonder, and I realize that I wonder and I question, and I try and understand why it is like this. Like, why can't you have patience? Why can't you do the way things should be done? Why everything has to be your way, and why you don't care about things other than yours? So the idea of the me should be in the last. It should be in the end.
Yeah,
The threshold has to be higher.
that's a
The
good point.
resilience, the patience, I think this is very important. If you're good, it'll come to you. But
I think,
have
yeah,
patience.
yeah. I think this is kind of connected to the next question that Mariam is asking, that what keeps inspiring you to bring up new ideas with fabric each and every time?
Each and every time. It's, I used to wonder about it with musicians. How can they come up with the new music tune or a track all the times? But I think you do it because that's what the beauty of life is. It's always changing every minute. Last 1 hour is very different from this.
Yeah,
So as far as you're living, you're creating.
yeah. Agreed. It happens. It's constantly in flux. You can be inspired at any
Yes.
second. I think all designers would agree to that point.
Everyone, we are always thrown, bombarded with so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Just the last question, Gaurav, and then I want to have some one or two questions for the future of textile design that I want to ask you. Some last questions from Q&A. Shafna asks, affordable luxury as a concept has been gaining a lot of popularity. Your take on it, very briefly.
I think everything which is made well is luxury. Uh, you don't have to package it in a certain way and sell it in a certain way. Anything which is pure is luxury, because purity is what is luxury in today's time, where everything is mixed and fake. So affordability again depends on who's buying it. But to give you a question, a very straight pointed answer is luxury, again, if you make it affordable, is not luxury.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a contradiction in terms over
Contradiction.
there. I have a question from my end because we want to ask you something about the future of your brand. How do you see Akaro evolving from here on up in the next 10 years?
So we have gone digital last year. We are definitely depending a lot on the tech part of it, where we are selling online, I think, which is growing for us. We are also getting into embroideries now, which I've never done. We are launching a bridal line this month, end of the month. Uh, we are entering into lower price point products, which what somebody asked about, the affordable luxury. So we want it to be accessible to everyone. We want to increase our product variation as well, offerings in terms of what we want to do, and we want to get a little easier in terms of because earlier mostly all the work was conceptual. So now I think we want to do like a trickle down version of those, and
Yeah,
have our hands in both the
both
parts of
worlds,
the,
both worlds,
yeah, both.
two worlds.
Yes.
Um, if you, these are just for the audience, I'd like you to share your thoughts on this. If you were a fresh young design graduate today, what would you do differently and what would you do the same?
What would I do differently and what do I?
What would you keep the same? What would you do exactly the same way?
Differently, if I have to go back, I would definitely go all out in terms of my making. Like, I would not think too much, because I think when you think too much, you
Okay,
definitely
it
create works which are very
paralyzes.
intense. But I would like to be a little bit more carefree, and I would like to have less fear. Like when I cut my fabric, I used to be very scared earlier. I would like to be like asked too many questions. I would not like to be intimidated. I used to get intimidated a lot by my faculties, by senior designers, professionals. I would play. I would have fun with what I'm doing. 150% I would do that. What would I keep the same is I would keep my ethics same. I was a very, I think, uh, sincere student.
Yeah.
I would definitely keep that same. And yeah, I think I would go back in time because I love though, like I miss times when I was at NIFT and when we used to create because we were so passionate and driven. That was the only thing we wanted. We wanted to create, keep like let's do it like this, let's do it like this. I think I would move all this Instagram and nonsense. Like this whole cell phone part I would do away with.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think what you said is it kind of resonates. I think the idea of play and having fun with your work and really
Fun.
engaging with it at a very personal and intellectual level.
Personal level and not look at who's doing what.
Doing what?
Everyone
Not
can go to hell. I
compare.
don't care.
Yeah, because there's no point in comparing yourself. Work on your own work, develop your own style, do a lot of work, have fun with your work, and also have a lot of, sustain the passion for your work. I think that's kind of what the message is. Um,
Yeah.
just the last question, any potential advice that you would share with the Gen Z graduates of today? What changes and opportunities should they be looking out for, let's say, once they graduate? Any thoughts to share on that?
I already said that you can focus on your own practice. I think that's very important because you have to have your own handwriting and your own fingerprint, something which you can call your own. Have a fresh language because I think that's very very important. That's missing. Authentic, something which is very strong in terms of its foundation, not based on someone else's idea.
Mhm.
I think that's, if you really want to be a good designer, I think that's something which is very important because every day, just look at the number of graduates. How many works would stand out? How many people will come far? You have to understand that. So for that, you have to have always compare your own work with your own work.
Yeah.
And I think have faith. I mean, believe in yourself. It's as I said, it's a tough, anything isn't tough in life. And it's not just for fashion. I would say it for everything. Do things your way.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's a great note to end on. I think as designers, we have the ability to do that. We have the ability to develop our own story and our own style. And I think the commitment should be there to do just that. As a young
Yes.
grad,
And
as a yeah,
have a point of view. I mean, funnily, it's called Point of View, this whole series. But
yeah,
so I was doing an interview somewhere else with some newspaper the other day, and that's what I told them. What makes me apart is I have a point of view, I have an opinion. It's important to have a point of view.
yeah. I think that's true, and I think that's something that we can take away from this session as well. Gaurav, thank you very much. I think we've run out of time. We had
Thank
so many
you.
more questions, but next time I think we need to have a different, separate session with you just to talk about sustainability, talk about luxury, talk about craft couture, which is a very important part, and it's going to become an important part of your story going forward. And that is kind of the future for Caro, and you talked to us a lot about that as well. And I would like to also just mention quickly before we close that our next session of Point of View is coming up tomorrow with Akila Sheshai, and which is tomorrow on Friday. And on Saturday, we have Chandrasekhar Beda. They are both textile visual artists and both with very distinctive points of view again. And I would encourage all of you to tune in for that as well. It will be very interesting. And on that note, Gaurav, hey, why have you gone offline off video? Um, okay, there you are. All right. So Gaurav, thank you very much again. It was a real pleasure, and I think we need to have a couple of more sessions again with you. It's a very interesting conversation. It was great to see your work. It was great to see the story of Akaro, and I hope it was for the audience also very enlightening to see his process, to really understand how a textile designer has created a story and a point of view in fashion and in textile design. And I would encourage you to see more of his work through his website and his social media handles. Thanks again, Gaurav. It was a pleasure.
Thank
And I
you.
hope to see, thank you for the audience to joining in. And We hope we answered some of your questions, if not all of your questions, but we look forward to seeing you again. All right. Take
Thank
care, everyone. Thanks. Good evening. See you,
you.
Gaurav.
Bye. Bye. Bye.